Hello and welcome to CEAZOR Snack Sandwich. Today we're going to take a look at xDollar. Now xDollar is a pretty cool protocol. I like it. It's based on Liquidity's LUSD, and I'm a big fan of Liquidity's LUSD program and system and protocol. So this one's based on that one, and there's some slight differences, so we'll get into them and I'll kind of show you an overview of what's going on here. If you really want to know a lot in depth exactly how liquidity works, I did do a video on that where I explain it very thoroughly, so you can watch that video. I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. Now before I get into explaining this protocol here, I do want to mention this is a sponsored video from the Creator DAO, and there is a link in the description for people who are interested in the Creator DAO. So what do we have here? We have a XIM. So the XIM token is right here, this XIM. The X is pronounced like an SH kind of. The XIM token is the stablecoin of the xDollar protocol. It's a US dollar stablecoin, pegged to the US dollar. And this is a dashboard. So what sets this apart from LUSD are two major factors and a few little factors. But the two major ones are they are using two collaterals currently. So they have wBTC as a collateral and wETH as a collateral. And this protocol is planning to go multi-chain. So in the future, there will be other coins as well on other chains. So these are the two major factors that set it aside from Liquidity. Liquidity only accepts wETH and is only on Ethereum so far as I know. So this is interesting. So do keep in mind that these are collateralized debt positions, CDPs, so meaning that you can get liquidated by using this protocol. So make sure you understand it and you are aware of what's going on before you open any positions here. So let's go through the tabs over here and I'll talk a little bit about each of them. So XBank. XBank is the place where you will open up what they call troves. These are like vaults. You put your wBTC in here and you use that wBTC to mint the XIM token. Or you open up a trove here and you put your wETH in here to mint XIM. Now, I'm not going to do this right now because it is on Ethereum and I don't want to spend gas to test this, but I'm pretty familiar with what it's doing and I'm going to think about whether or not I want to use this or not. So when you do click this and you open up a trove, you'll be met with a screen that looks something like this. The numbers may be different at that time, but anyhow. So you will first, deposit, you choose how much wBTC or wETH you want to deposit, how much and how many XIM you want to borrow versus that wETH. And then we have some factors down here that you need to pay attention to. So the first one that's interesting here is liquidation reserve. So they're going to charge you $400 US on top of whatever you borrow. So if I borrow $2,000, my debt will be $2,400 US, okay? As you can see, it's 2,410, right? But I'll get into the 10 in a second. Now, what is this $400? Why are they charging me $400 to borrow $2,000? This is what they call liquidation reserve. Now, this is money that's put here, deposited here, in case I get liquidated. If I get liquidated, this money is used to incentivize the liquidator, the person to liquidate me. Now, if I close this trove, if I repay my debt and close the trove, then this $400 will be refunded to me. So it's not gone, it's just an incentive for me to manage this. So as I said, you can't get liquidated, so don't go too degen and borrow too much. Now, each trove is independent, so if your wBTC is in a position to get liquidated, doesn't mean your Ethereum position will get liquidated. There is a one-time borrowing fee. So anytime you press borrowing, then you get charged this $10. As you can see, it gets added to your debt and it's a percentage, 0.5%. So, as you borrow, then you're going to have to pay a little bit to borrow some. So, keep that in mind as you do this. You're going to have to make this money back with the XIM as you put it somewhere else. The debt ceiling is the total amount of XIM that the protocol has set that can be backed by wBTC. Now, again, this number is probably different when you come to interact here. And this is probably something that governance will be able to change in the future. Like, we want more wBTC backing, so they would just keep raising this number. This is the total amount of XIM that can be minted with wBTC. And this is the available amount of XIM that currently So it's basically this number minus all the people who have borrowed XIM versus wBTC. And this is basically how much you could take if you put enough collateral inside there. So keep that in mind. Don't put too much collateral and find out, oh, I can only borrow 4,000 XIM or whatever that number happens to be. And then this would be your current collateral ratio based on your settings. So, keep this healthy. Don't go too degen, don't go too risky, and so forth. So back over to here. Now, second one, Xpeg. Now, there are several ways that the XIM has to maintain peg. And the first way is there is a liquidity pool, right? On Curve, as you can see, I will get into that in the future. So there is a liquidity pool versus 3 CRV, and that will help to maintain peg because people can arbitrage that pool with, and then there's also the fact that like when anytime the XIM is below peg, people can buy XIM from this pool and use it to pay back their debt, right? And then when the XIM goes above, then they can borrow it back out. So they can arbitrage via these troves and this curve pool, right? And then there's this third way here, what they call the Xpeg. Now what this is, the protocol always assumes that XIM is worth $1. So if XIM is worth $1.05 or even some crazy number like $1.20, right, inside this market, then you can bring USDC here, which is $1, right? And you can get, let's say you bring 100 USDC, you can get 100 XIM from here, and then you can take those XIM and sell them for USDC and make a profit. So this is how they will help to bring the peg back down. So this is 1-to-1. Now, this one here, if we go to 0 peg, there is some key factors here. The liquidation and the redemption functions are disabled on these troves. So nobody can come here and get this USDC out of here. So no one can just buy XIM and pull USDC out of here. Only the people who build the troves can get this USDC back out of here, and they cannot be liquidated. So there's no liquidation on this as well. Now, as you can see, if you go down here, there is no liquidation fee for these troves. Okay, so this is how another way that they can help bring the peg back down when it's above peg, right? Next part we have is Xpool. Now, Xpool is the stability pool. Now, these are the things that they use to liquidate positions. Now, if you tell someone that they have to bring money to liquidate these people's positions, it makes it more difficult, right? They have to borrow money. So this pool can help with that. Now, if you put your XIM in here, or you put your XIM in here, as you can see, there's a wBTC one and a wETH one. If you put your XIM in one of these two pools, you will make space tokens. Now, space tokens are the governance token of this protocol, and they're used, I will talk a little bit more about them when I get into stake here. And basically, when someone needs to get liquidated, or when someone is kind of close to liquidation, then people can come here and they can use this XIM to liquidate people's positions by paying their debt and taking the wBTC out, right? Now, where does that wBTC go? It goes into this pool. And what does the liquidator get? He gets that amount of money I showed you here, this incentive, right? He gets this liquidation reserve. So he gets paid here to do this. So that's how so when you're in this position, you're going to get these space tokens, but periodically your XIM tokens are going to be used to buy BTC on the dip. So if we look at a chart here, let's say there was some position opened here. Someone borrowed XIM here versus wBTC, and then this happened. And let's say this was somewhere where there was a liquidatable event, right? The position was quite over collateralized, and somebody came and called the liquidation, whether it be a bot or a person or whatever, right? So they called liquidation, and basically your XIM tokens were used to buy BTC down here, right? So that's interesting, right? So you're going to buy BTC on the dip. So as it dips down, right? As it dips down, your XIM is used to buy BTC. So if you borrow BTC versus if you open a trove here and you get XIM, and you put your SHIEM into this X pool, then you have to be prepared that maybe in the future you're going to need to buy SHIEM in order to pay off your entire trove, right? So you got to keep that in mind, right? This is not lossless in the sense that you will always have the same amount of SHIEM in here. You will definitely start losing SHIEM as the price of wBTC goes down sometimes and people get liquidated, right? But that's kind of good. Like if you're bullish on BTC, this is a great place to buy BTC with your stablecoins. Okay, and the same over here. If you're bullish on wETH, this is a great place to buy wETH with your stablecoins, and also get incentivized with space tokens as you wait. Now, what can you do with space tokens? You can bring them to the X stake here. And again, now this is a time lock mechanism. If you lock up your space tokens for a longer period of time, you get more X space. So one space token is equal to almost one X space if you lock for 4 years. And you can set the date, right? You can set the date to whatever you want, right? And you can get a certain amount of X tokens. Now, X tokens are going to give you some governance rights, so voting. Now, like I said, there's not going to be a lot of voting, but there will be voting on like maybe some new troves or maybe the limits on each of the troves, right? And then you're going to also get fee sharing. So all the fees that are collected by the protocol are used to buy space tokens and given to the people here who lock the space token. And the last thing here we have is this SHIEM 3LP3CRVF farm. So what is that? That's this curve pool here. So you can, come here, you can deposit some coins, but be careful, the liquidity is not very deep right now. So if you come here with like $1 million, you're going to get some heavy slippage. So, make sure you plan, come here and check how much can you put in here. And it's always better to put like an even amount of everything, right? So SHIEM tokens and stable coins, or you could split it up between the 3 pool tokens, right? So it's always better to borrow SHIEM and bring some stable coins to stick in here. But if you just bring SHIEM and stick in here, you get a pretty heavy. So if you're going to do something big like this, make sure you bring, both some of these 3 pool tokens and get some SHIEM to do this, okay? Now, why would you want to do that? Because there is a pretty heavy APR right now. But again, this will obviously decrease as this fills up with more and more liquidity, okay? Okay, there's 2 more things that I'd like to talk about, and that is over here. If we click here, we have liquidations. Now, if you do want to be a liquidator, you can come here and try to, liquidate some risky troves and liquidate some positions if you feel that you would like to take part in this liquidation process. And then the other thing we have here is redeem. Now, redeem, as you can see, remember I said that the redeem function is disabled on USDC, but you can come here and you can redeem SHIEM tokens for wBTC at any time. So you just come here with some SHIEM tokens. If SHIEM is below peg, then you can buy SHIEM, bring it here, and use it to buy wBTC. So again, like if it's quite a bit below peg, then it's a good thing to do. You can get your wBTC on the cheap, right? You can get it for cheaper at a discount, right? So where do these wBTC come from? They come from people's troves. So you have to kind of remember that sometimes when you're using this system, and the same with LUSD, when you're using this system, you might end up with less of the collateral that you put in because people will redeem for your collateral and people will liquidate you, if that makes sense to you. So this is something you can take a look at and try to understand better, and then come and see if you want to take part in this as well. So that pretty much covers everything. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.